Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, today we're going to talk a little bit about happiness. If you've had a loss, about happiness and hope, and we're going to interview some people who have found hope after loss, including we're going to talk about our own situation, and we're going to talk to Alan Pedersen, the Executive Director of the Compassionate Friends, and we're going to talk about how service can bring you hope. But for those who are new into this grief and loss process, we want you to kind of hang in with us because we're a little further down the road. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you want to introduce who's going to be on our show today?
Yeah, I'd love to. Like you said, we're going to talk about hope and happiness today, and we are a little further down the road. And I think it scares people to know that we're still in the grief and loss world. But the thing is, I always say we're not. We're in the hope world. So we want people to know we've been there and we've survived. And not only have we survived, we've thrived. And you can find hope and happiness again. And that's why we bring on guests that have done that.
Right, absolutely.
So today we're going to have one of our very favorite people on, and he's hosted a lot of our shows. He's Alan Pedersen, and he's the Executive Director of the Compassionate Friends. And we are also going to have John Mitchell and Jacquie Edwards-Mitchell. I had to get that right, because I know Jacquie very well because I served with her on the Board of Directors for the Compassionate Friends, and she and her husband are going to come on, and they're going to talk about the loss of their two sons and how they have gone on to find hope again.
So it's going to be a great show. Well, Alan, welcome to the show. We always love having you on.
I am honored
Alan.
to be here with two of my favorite people as well, so it's an honor.
Yeah, you know, we're doing television and radio, and we have a big website, and you're Executive Director of the Compassionate Friends and all that. Hey, but that wasn't how it was in the beginning, was it?
No, and you know, I like what you said at the top, because, you know, a lot of times in grief, we're afraid to say the word happy, or we're afraid to say the word joy, because it's overwhelming to people who are new in it. And I think that so many people have always thought of grief as something you're in and then you jump out as quick as you can. But it's something that you process and go through. But you're right, Gloria. In those early days, I mean, gosh, we feel helpless and we feel hopeless, and we wonder, gosh, am I ever going to smile again? Am I ever going to laugh again? And the answer is yes to that. And what I'm really proud of is that we're no longer afraid to say you can find joy again. We're no longer timid about the fact that your life can be good again, but we're also very open to the fact that it is a process. It does take time and tears and talk and learning about grief. And you're so right. Service to others is one of the greatest things that you can do to help you heal.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a giant service, does it? I mean, talk about the Compassionate Friends. There are, what, 700 chapters, right? You're on the board, Heidi. I was on the board at one time, and Alan heads it.
Well, I think what's fantastic about an organization like the Compassionate Friends, and many organizations, is we have 700 chapters, 4,000 volunteers. And you know, something like bringing the ice to a meeting or setting up the chairs can bring great reward. And I sometimes think, you know, when we do these television shows and webinars, or we do an interview, we're always talking about that person that built the new wing to the hospital or the set of ball fields. But it's that proverbial opening the door to somebody in kindness, being there to listen and to hear. And what the Compassionate Friends provides in such a great way is the opportunity to serve at a level that you're able to.
Right.
And so that's why I so highly recommend service. And frankly, I believe that's what makes our organization work. You come and get help. And as you're getting help, an opportunity is presented for you to reach out in small ways. There really are no small ways, but in whatever ways you're capable to help somebody else.
Well, I know people that say, I even go to meetings and just set up the chairs. And that's the way that I serve.
Yeah.
Well, what about siblings, Heidi?
As you both know, the Compassionate Friends has a sibling component, and they have their great support for those of us that have lost brothers and sisters. And at their national conference, they have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of activities, a lot of workshops, and just a lot of getting together. It's just nice to be with other people that have had brothers and sisters die. I know that when Scott died, you know, and I was only 20 at the time, I didn't know anybody that had ever had a brother or sister die that was under like 85 years old. So, I mean, just to be around other people that get it, I mean, sometimes you don't even have to talk. You're just there having a good time.
And you know, Heidi, that in itself is service. And a lot of people, we say the Compassionate Friends, they don't know what we mean, but We're the largest grief organization in the world that helps families who've lost a child, grandchild, or sibling. But you're doing service when you just listen to somebody else. I mean, the
Absolutely.
greatest gift you can probably give someone in grief is just to validate their loss and just to listen.
Yeah.
But also, when people show up at a Compassionate Friends or whatever meeting, they give the leaders an opportunity to lead somebody.
Right.
That's
I mean,
right.
what's the point? We're doing the TV, radio, if nobody, we can't help people if they're not listening.
Right.
So they really do a service for you on every level. And I don't think people sometimes realize that they serve people by just listening and being at something they're doing.
Well,
Exactly.
listening is powerful because I think that one of the things that happens when we've had a loss is people that don't really get it want to fix it.
Right.
And you can't fix somebody's loss unless you go and get Scott and go and get Ashley and bring them in here.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that's really all we want.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to fix it, just to listen and validate and say, wow, I'm here for you, and this sounds really awful and hard. Tell me more about it. That's huge. That's a huge gift to give someone that's grieving.
It is, and you know, a lot of times I'll meet people, and they'll have a grand idea for helping, and they'll say, you know, someday I'm going to raise the money to build this retreat center, or I'm going to do this, and you know, and sometimes I caution people, that's great. I mean, and have that vision, but do what you can today, because there is something real. It's just, there's magic in helping. You know, it sounds like a cliche that healing begins with helping, but it really does. It's what I love about Open to Hope, what you guys are doing by providing such great resources. And in our partnership that we do is that we're teaching people that the grieving process, it's action.
Right.
Grieving is work.
Right.
But one of the greatest things we can do and one of the most beneficial things we can do is helping in whatever way we can.
So I got started with the Compassionate Friends doing a radio show for you guys, and it ended up to be Open to Hope, and then partnering ship on television and radio and YouTube. It's been an amazing trip for us, and all the wonderful people out there that support.
Yeah.
Well, and I
our
think that one of the reasons I felt that Open to Hope was so needed is because it's what I needed, and it's what you needed early on. Because as we all know,
Right.
oftentimes the hardest parts of your day are in the middle of the night when nobody's around.
Exactly.
And you're not working, and you've got downtime, and you're looking out your window saying, does anyone else get it?
Right.
Am I the only person alive that's ever had to deal with this? I am in so much pain right now, and nobody's there. So with
Right.
Open to Hope and with Compassionate Friends, you can log on and hear all these shows and listen to radio and TV and see people that are further down the road and hold on to them as a lifeline and say, I don't know how I'm going to make it,
Right.
but I'm going to hold on to Alan and Gloria and Heidi because they've made it, and I'm somehow going to make it too. You need those lifelines early on.
You do, and I think, people often ask, a former president of our board of directors said something so funny, but it's so true. People say, well, how did you become the executive director of the Compassionate Friends, or how did you serve on the board of directors? And we always just tell people, we were just the ones, that were too dumb to not know to raise our hands, because it really started out, you never
Yeah.
know where service will lead. That's the beautiful
Yeah.
thing. You thought of the idea of the radio program, and now look at today, the hundreds of radio programs and articles, and it's the same thing. Somebody starts out by asking you to bring that, liter of pop soda to the meeting, and then you set up the chair, and then they ask you to reach out to somebody, and then you serve on a steering committee or whatever. But there's something in service that I think is really beautiful. I always tell people, our lives aren't going to be the way they were before when we have this kind of loss in our life. And that grief is going to take you somewhere. And the thing about service is that it opens a door that you walk through that you hadn't walked through before. And then when you get into that new place, another door is going to open. And you never know where it's going to take you. And we have sad stories to tell. We do. And we own those stories, and we can always tell them. But grief can take you to a very beautiful place. And it's kind of like that wave. You could keep going, bucking up against it and letting it knock you down. But sometimes if you just get up on top of the wave and let grief and live grief and love grief, it can take you to some place you never knew where you would go in your life. And your life can have great meaning and deep purpose. And you can end up doing things. I can tell you today, I'm doing things today I never imagined that I would be doing. I would never know the two of you had I not stepped through that door and reached out to help somebody else. So service is a beautiful thing. And when you talk about where healing comes from, it starts there.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely,
wonderful.
absolutely. Well, I thought maybe we'd show a little PSA, public service announcement.
You guys
we
have a
made for
great
Open to
one.
Hope.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet, and I'm looking forward that
All
highlights
right.
the work that
And
you
then
do.
after that, we want to interview the family and talk to them because they're very involved with Compassionate Friends and run a chapter.
Terrific.
Or work in a chapter of Compassionate Friends.
The loss of a loved one can leave you feeling depressed, angry, alone, lost. But you don't have to face this journey on your own. Open to Hope is a free community for anyone who has experienced loss. Find support. Find help. Find hope. Give grief a voice at Open to Hope. For more information, find us at opentohope.com.
You two are people who are very hope for a lot of people out there.
Friends of ours.
Absolutely.
Because you,
I mean, Jacquie is on the board of Compassionate Friends, and John runs the chapter in Manhattan and does a lot of stuff with men in grief. And you guys are such an example because, I mean, you've lost 2 of your 3 sons, Kareem and Kevin. And I know Christopher wasn't here today. Well, we are going to get him on because he's got to work today. But yeah, you're a prime example that you didn't let, I know at the beginning it was very, very hard. And John, you've been very candid about that with me in the past. But you didn't let it completely destroy your lives.
When you first start going to Compassionate Friends, you go for yourself. And then you see, when I first started, I was a total wreck. And I'm so thankful. I lost, the way I'm looking at things, I lost 2 children, but I gained a family of thousands.
wow. And how long's it been for you?
22 years.
22 years, and one of your sons was swimming and the other one,
Well, they were both in the pool, and my oldest son couldn't see without his glasses, and he dove into the pool, and there was a slanted wall, and he hit his head and went to the bottom. He was over 200 pounds. His younger brother was 12. He weighed 60 pounds, soaking wet. He tried to go down to the bottom to bring him up.
To save him. Wow.
yeah, so sorry.
Which speaks to the sibling bond, too.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go in and save my brother, even if I risk my own life.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty unbelievable. My heart goes out to you guys.
We have a good chapter in New York and Manhattan, which is run by myself and my co-leader, Marie Levine. And to me, the biggest fear is that open door. The most important thing is the time and the place. So you have to have a place where you can meet, and it has to be a certain time every time, a set time. And my biggest fear is not being there at that time. So the thing I know that every second and 4th Tuesday in the month, the rest of my life, I will be at a meeting, whether as a chapter leader or whether it's just setting up the chairs, whatever is necessary. Because this organization has gave me hope and life back.
Well, I know at the candlelighting in Manhattan, you said that the first year or 2 were really hard, and that it was a horrible time for you, and it was just, you didn't know how you were going to survive this. And I'm wondering, now you're both in just very different places, and what would you tell people out there? What would you tell other guys out there that don't know how they're going to survive at this point?
One day at a time.
Oh, I like that,
Yeah,
Jacquie.
that's
One day at
good.
a time.
One day at a time.
One day at a time.
And you need other people. You can't do this journey alone. You'll lose your mind. That's how I feel.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the motto of Compassionate Friends is you need not walk alone.
Yeah.
right.
And that is so true.
Yeah. Jacquie, and you're on the national board.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and what kinds of things do you think people need in that first year or 2?
Oh, definitely. You've got to have a support, someone to call in the middle of the night, someone when everyone else is asleep and you can't sleep, someone that you can reach out to who understands what it's like. This doesn't go away. You know, you don't get up one day and you're bereaved and the following day you're not. This is something that sticks with you. So for me, it was definitely having phone contacts that worked, going to meetings. I went to so many different meetings, different chapters. Some worked, some didn't, but we went to a lot of different meetings, and I still do.
And you're making a good point. If a chapter, I like how you said you went to different meetings in different places.
Absolutely.
I think it's so important for people to know if it doesn't work, if it's not a good fit, you go to another one.
Go to another one.
It's like going to therapy. for
Absolutely.
grief. I mean,
Absolutely.
if it's not a good fit, you shop around.
Absolutely.
So I like that idea that, you know, you shopped around until you found a good fit, and then you stayed.
Absolutely.
And if I can interject one thing, see, this is the compassionate friends. This is the beauty in it. These are the people that show up month after month, and for John to say, you know, twice a month, that's where he's going to be, and all the great work that Jacquie has done. It's why our organization is what it is thousands of people as dedicated as this because somebody was there for them, and now they want to be there.
And I want to say, as human beings, we do things that make us feel good. And it
Absolutely.
does feel good to help other people, doesn't
Absolutely.
it? It does. You, for people who've had a recent loss, you will feel better again. You will feel happy again. You will feel good again. It feels good. There are things that come, you know.
Right, and I remember going to this candle lighting. Jacquie invited me, and I was like, oh, I've got to go to this. And it was beautiful. The venue was beautiful. It was a hotel that somebody had owned that had had the death of a child. And I remember, I didn't know John, but this man is working the room. He's talking to everyone, he's greeting everybody. He just is making an effort to touch base with every single person. I was like, I don't know who that is, because I didn't know that was your husband at the time. I said, but I want to get to know this guy. Who is this guy? And it was just John making sure that everybody felt comfortable, and Jacquie was checking everybody in, and that everybody felt welcome. And a lot of people had never been there, and a lot of people were newly bereaved, and they just needed someone to come up to them and say, hey, we've been there and we're here for you.
Very interesting, because we were actually told about TCF, because I was told, when you get home, you must find this because he's going to need this, not you're going to need this. So for someone who really needed this, he's really involved now.
It took a while. It did take a while. For some people, it's longer than others. Like, I would go, the first 3 years was the toughest because I was totally out of it. And once I got steady going to meetings, I used to look at the leaders, and I was like, how do they do this? Where do they get their strength from? But in time, it starts with the welcoming table or setting up the chairs, because now you have an insight to you're helping, and it's therapeutic. And slowly you become a little more involved and doing a little more the library and such and different things, and it is the best thing that's happened to me because, like I said before, my family has lost too, gained 1,000.
That's a beautiful thing.
You lost 2 and gained 1,000.
John is one of those guys who didn't learn to keep his hand down. So, you know, we've got our eye on you now. So.
And it's interesting because, like you said at the beginning, you looked at people that were leading, going, "How are they doing this? I can barely survive. I don't know how they're doing this." And one step at a time, and one day at a time, as you said, Jacquie, and that's how you do it. And then soon it grows and grows and grows, and before you know it, you're leading the organization.
Absolutely.
You know, you're part of that.
Absolutely.
You know, we say in our meetings, we are not professionals.
Right.
None of us are. I mean,
right.
and as far as running
When
the
I
group
go,
are.
I'm not a professional.
We're all
I'm
bereaved
just a bereaved
parents,
parent.
grandparents, and siblings.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we just put the effort. And you, from what I see in the organization, you could look at the organization and go, these are professional people. And we're not. We're just dedicated bereaved parents
Right.
with a cause. And that's what makes the organization great.
Well, I think you made a good point. I remember watching people. You watch people, and you're like, "Whoa, they're doing okay." You know, they smile. I mean, at first you're like, you can't even get there, and then you find people who are.
And it is interesting because you go to the national conferences, and we're having one in July in Scottsdale, Arizona, as you all know. But you know, if you're new in the organization, you go to these conferences and it's like a family reunion.
Absolutely.
We're all hugging and laughing and, you know, so excited to see each other. And I think people that are new in the organization, they're just looking at it going, what's
What's going on
Well,
here?
yeah, people are happy again. They have joy again. They have hope again. I don't get it. So, and then as they get more familiar with the organization and start seeing our conferences over the weekend, they start understanding we're celebrating the life of those that we loved. We're, you know, honoring them and paying tribute to them, and introducing. I'm introducing Scott to all my friends that never knew him, and they know him through me.
Yeah, and what you said at the start of the show, Gloria, I thought was so appropriate, because I think when people go seek help, it's difficult for them. You know, I remember my first meeting of the Compassionate Friends, the first lady I met was 17 years down the road. And my first thought was, oh my God, lady, don't you get it? How many times you got to take this course before you get it? I mean, like, come on. But you know, it took a while to realize it. You know what, now she's there for me. That's what's beautiful about this kind of an organization and going back to service, is that it gives you the chance to give back. And people say, you give so much. You serve on the board, you're a chapter leader, you give so much. But I always tell people we get more back
Absolutely
in return.
do.
What we get in return is so much, so many times more. It really is, isn't it?
It's incredible to see the one variable, I think, in loss is time. It does take time. It isn't incredible to see people their first meeting, and then as time goes on, it's amazing, isn't
Absolutely.
it? The devastation, the human spirit is quite amazing.
And I think it's hard to even see how far that you're in a different place and how far you've come, unless you look at the newbies. The people that come in there, you know, not as far along in their journey, you're like, oh, okay, I am in a different place, because I actually wear jewelry now. I mean, you know, because at the beginning it's hard to even get out of bed. It's hard to do anything. It's an effort to really even get up and go. And so you see that you're in a different place, and it's comforting.
Yeah, those 45-minute showers and try to match your socks and trying to be on time.
Make sure you had 2 pairs of black shoes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'm colorblind, so my socks never did match, you know. But you know, even at a conference, and you notice this too when you're there, is even to see people on the very first day of our national conference walk in scared, and lost, and you look at them the second day and you just see the shoulders relaxing.
Absolutely.
You see, because they're so surrounded by love, and I think that's what our organization is about, is the love. And you know, when you're in that love and you're free to fully express it around people who understand your loss, that's very important. I think it's very important and always recommending support for people. That's the greatest benefit of it.
Now we're going to go out of the show in a little while, and you're going to sing a little bit further down the road. Do you want to talk about that song and your being a songwriter and why you wrote it, and you know what it means to you to write?
I kind of wrote the whole journey of grief, and for a while I was, you know, like we've talked, all of us, hopeless, helpless. But then one day, you know, I thought, a little farther down the road, you will see the sun again. And I was just beginning to see the sun. Not quite, but just beginning. But I wanted to encourage people, because I think the hardest thing about deep loss is we think life's never going to be good again. And I used to, but
you really believe it. You not only think it, you really believe your life is never going to be good again, right? I mean, you know, you say it won't be the same. Of course it won't be the same, but it will be good again. And you just don't believe that.
And I remember the day you told me, you were the first person ever really told me that. You said, I'm tired of being silent about joy again. We're going to start telling people we have to give hope, because there is hope. Even when you don't see it, you don't feel it. It is there, because we've met thousands and thousands of people between us.
And that doesn't mean that we leave our loved ones behind. We bring them with us in a different way. We keep their memories alive, and we still feel and miss them, but we also honor their lives and celebrate their lives through living our own and paying tribute to them that way.
Yeah. The boys are alive whenever we enter anything that has to do with TCF. Any group.
You know, at our meeting we have 75 to 80 people sometimes. And you can look across the room and go, what is her name? What is his name? Well, I don't know, but that's Bobby's mother. That's Betty's father. The children are remembered by everyone. And this is the greatest thing that's happened. And it's fantastic, because I always tell the new parents, I may never remember your name, but I'll never forget your child's name. And it's been 22 years, but my sons have been here, alive. Kept alive by the organization.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, all of you. It's been wonderful, and thank you for all the wonderful things that you do for people, and we want to remind you all that there is hope. And we're going to close the show with Alan singing A Little Further Down the Road. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I know those tears you're crying. I've been in your shoes. You feel like there's no use in trying, like there's nothing left to lose. You take one step forward, you move 2 steps back. You may not see it now, but it won't always be like that. A little farther down the road, and you'll see the sun again. A little farther down the road, you look back at where you've been, and you'll see how far you've come, and you'll find the strength to go a little farther down the road. This journey is not easy. It's a winding road filled with twists and turns. You can make it, believe me. In time, you'll learn. A greater love comes from your deepest pain, and there's power in that love to help you rise again. A little farther down the road, and you'll see the sun again. A little farther down the road, you look back at where you've been, and you'll see how far you've come, and you'll find the strength to go a little farther down the road. It's holding on, it's bittersweet. Slow, then finding peace. A little farther down the road, and you'll see the sun again. A little farther down the road, you look back at where you've been, and you'll see how far you've come, and you'll find the strength to